Hello everyone, good afternoon. For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. To begin today, after Sunday's parliamentary elections in Venezuela, President Nicolas Maduro has promised to review and make changes in the governing party strategy. President Maduro spoke during a televised address to the nation on Monday night and acknowledged that the governing party had made mistakes. The president promised to rally the governing United Socialist Party of Venezuela to debate and analyze the poor results in the parliamentary elections.
Convocamos el Congreso de Delegados y Delegadas extraordinario del Partido Socialista Unido de Venezuela para el próximo jueves a una jornada especial de trabajo, de evaluación y de planificación para la acción.
There we heard Nicolas Maduro. He was saying that for this Thursday they will convoke what will be a special working day for his party there as they try to recuperate after their loss on Sunday. Moving on now, the favorite for the Democratic presidential party nomination in the United States, Hillary Clinton, has been caught on camera celebrating the Venezuelan opposition's victory.
You know, the people of Venezuela need the support of everybody in this hemisphere, particularly our friends in Latin America, speaking up for their democracy, for their future, standing up for their human rights. It is tragic that what was the richest country in Latin America, one of the richest countries resource-wise in the world, has been so mismanaged, and that people have been so oppressed and mistreated over the course of the last, 15 years. So we've got to stand with the people of Venezuela, and I certainly will stand with you. And hopefully this election will begin the process of taking back democracy and creating opportunity for the Venezuelan people. Thank you so much.
And international media has played an important role in the outcome of the Venezuelan elections. Telesur's team in Peru was able to capture a private TV station openly misleading their audience about the government of Venezuela and the elections. Our correspondent Raul Mora now reports on that incident from Lima.
During the elections in Venezuela on Sunday, Canal N, a TV channel from the largest media monopoly in Peru, transmitted a false report blaming President Maduro for not allowing Venezuelans in Peru to vote, when in fact parliamentary elections have never been open to those who live abroad.
The door's closed. Today the Embassy of Venezuela has not opened its doors. Several Venezuelans are coming here, attempting to execute their right to vote, but this is not possible. As we can see, these elections have been very violent.
When Telesur approached the journalist asking him why he was misleading the public in his report, he refused to answer and ran away. Critical voices from Congress believe such cases of distortion of news attacking leftist governments in the region are common.
The issue here is that lies dominate the media. In the case of this election, it was presented as if it was a type of civil war and Venezuelans were living in barracks, and if anybody moved, they would be shot. It was a situation that was proven false as information was being released. People would go to vote enthusiastically. There was complete freedom, and there wasn't a single serious incident.
Despite overwhelming attacks from the conservative media, Peruvian social movements and labor unions expressed solidarity with the Venezuelan revolution.
The people are organizing themselves in different sectors of the country, not only to engage in their own process of transformation, but also to defeat the oligarchies in Latin America. And I think that is the effort that has been happening with progressive movements and the transformation that have happened thanks to the push given by Hugo Chavez.
This and other political movements in Venezuela have captured the attention of Peruvians since the arrival of President Chavez, and it appears they will keep influencing the local scene. Rael Mora, Telesur, Peru.
The The Brazilian lower house will appoint a special impeachment commission this Tuesday. Now, the commission will investigate the charges raised against President Dilma Rousseff to eventually impeach her. This House Speaker Eduardo Cunha postponed the appointment of the commission, which was set to happen on Monday, sparking some anger from the government party. In the wake of the commission's appointment, Rousseff called for the defense of democracy and legality following a meeting with a team of leading lawyers who maintain that the efforts to impeach the president are illegal.
Our country can only be united by abiding the principles of democratic legality and the state of law. The rules must be respected. Our country needs unity, but this unity depends on respecting the principles of legality. Any type of rupture with legality will harm the country's growth and stability. We need to look at this process under the microscope of legality.
And the situation in Brazil became more complicated on Monday night after the vice president, Michel Temer, wrote a letter to President Dilma Rousseff where he criticized her and he said she had been ignoring him. The ruling Workers' Party believes that the letter is a move to break the governing alliance with Temer's Democratic Movement Party. President Rousseff currently has enough votes in both the lower house and the Senate to avoid impeachment. However, if the alliance is broken, she could lose that majority. If Rousseff is ousted, Temer would then take her place. Colombian lawmakers have raised their concerns regarding the promotion of dozens of high-ranking military officials due to their possible involvement in human rights violations. Our correspondent there in Bogotá now, Natalia Margarita, reports.
Speaking during a military graduation ceremony, President Juan Manuel Santos insisted on the crucial role that Colombia's armed forces will play in the wake of the transition from 50 years of war to peace.
We're going to need our armed forces in order to guarantee a stable and long-standing peace. Our armed forces will have to adapt to the new country that we will be constructing once we end the war and silence the rifles.
Given that the country will face a key moment once a final peace deal is reached, some lawmakers have raised concerns regarding a list of nearly 40 officials expected to be promoted, some of whom have questionable backgrounds.
Officials that are under investigation for issues that can be classified as crimes against humanity, for serious corruption, or for links with drug trafficking, shouldn't be promoted until those investigations are entirely cleared up.
Many have insisted that the challenges ahead of the peace process are not minor, and as such, the military leadership should be reshuffled. One of those challenges is the issue of paramilitarism.
We need generals that are much more open to post-conflict issues and the implementation of the peace agreements. They also need to be willing to retake many areas of the country from paramilitarism, as well as dismantling those groups.
For human rights advocates, a redefinition of Colombia's military doctrine and practices comes as imperative for the construction of peace.
What we basically need is an armed force that assures compliance with the Constitution and guarantees the rights and freedoms of society rather than continuing to protect the privileges and interests of a few powerful political sectors that exercise control over the territories in the regions.
The lawmakers highlight that at stake is the promotion of military personnel who will be charged with the responsibility of peace and not any more war. Natalia Margarita, Telesur, Bogotá.
Less than a week ago, that the families of the 43 disappeared Ayotzinapa students, they pressured federal authorities to agree to open new lines of investigation and reform how the government will carry out the investigation. Yet even with the new commitments, sharp criticism by independent investigators and rights defenders continue there. Our correspondent Clayton Kahn now reports.
The group of independent experts investigating the case have again said that the government's official line that the students were incinerated by a drug gang in a garbage dump is completely false. They say new satellite and meteorological evidence backs up their previous conclusion based on other scientific data.
If it rained in Iguala on September 26 and 27 of 2014, and nobody saw a fire in the community of Cocula on those days, the independent group of experts considers that this analysis supports the revelation in its report.
The investigators, who have the backing of the families of the 43 students, also insist on the need to investigate and question 27 military personnel that are connected to the case. They say that previous questioning carried out by federal authorities lacked depth and content.
No one knows what the government investigators asked in those interrogations. The answers from the soldiers also leave many key questions unanswered because they do not go into any depth. So the group of experts believes it is necessary to question all the soldiers again.
Human rights defenders say the government's consistent denial to allow the investigators access to the soldiers speaks for itself. This rights defender in particular says this refusal, coupled with proposed legislation that is supposed to penalize the act of forced disappearance, may provide the authorities with a way of avoiding any responsibility.
The entire government wants, through a new law, to erase the past and say, well, let's create this new law, and from there on, it is like erasing the past and starting from zero.
The government says its new investigation will be completed by April next year, and that it will give the independent experts oversight over the process and keep the families constantly informed. Clayton Cantelo Sur, Mexico City.
A three-day meeting is being hosted by Saudi Arabia in Riyadh to try to unite the Syrian opposition before potential talks with the government of President Bashar al-Assad. Now, the outlook for the political track recently launched in Vienna appears bleak as international divisions over Assad persist. The meeting offers the prospect of forging a more united opposition better able to negotiate with the government. Once again, Palestinian fishermen were attacked by Israeli forces in Gaza. We turn now to our correspondent there in Gaza, Noor Harazin.
As Palestinian people in the West Bank are goodbying their fellow Palestinian brothers and sisters who were killed by Israeli fire over the past 2 days, the situation here in Gaza is still calm. However, Palestinian Fishermen Committee reported this morning that the Israeli naval forces shot towards Palestinian fishermen off the coast of Gaza City. Palestinian medical sources said that at least 2 Palestinian fishermen were injured and others were forced to flee the area immediately.
Baghdad has demanded that Turkey withdraw their soldiers who are currently camped near the Islamic State-held city of Mosul. Turkey's foreign ministry has announced that it has halted the deployment of troops to Iraq for now, but will not withdraw those already there. Now, according to Turkey, its latest deployment of soldiers there is part of a mission to train and equip local Iraqi forces. But the national government says it never invited such a force and will take its case to the United Nations if they are not pulled out. Representatives from almost 200 countries are negotiating a deal to limit global warming, which is due to be presented on December the 11th. Now, the countries also need to agree on the financing and distribution of funding for developing countries to help them cut emissions. France has asked 8 ministers from various countries to lead select working groups in the hope of reaching a draft agreement by Wednesday.
If the international community does not recognize the rise of 1.5 degrees as the maximum threshold, it will destroy Vanuatu's last chance to stay alive, which we believe to be our inalienable human right. We need to support the 1.5 degree project within the framework of the global goal and agree on legal commitments that can be modified upward along successive reviews. My people need that we take action before 2020 in the most ambitious way possible now.
And we now turn to the COP21 in Paris. We turn to our correspondent there, Luis Arroyo. He is there at the summit. Luis, just update us, if you will. How are the negotiations there going, and also update us, if you will, on the civil society organizations and how they're taking part in those discussions.
Hello, Cody. Yes, we are in the final stretch of COP21 negotiations. World leaders have a draft in their hands with the brackets that indicate areas of disagreement. Today, the representation of Venezuela, headed by Claudia Salerno, the Venezuelan ambassador to the European Union, and Guillermo Barreto, the Minister of Eco-Socialism, gave a press conference, and they said that negotiators are doing well, and they are very optimistic that a final agreement will be reached by Friday. However, they said that the ALBA countries have to fight a lot inside of those rooms because the rich countries just don't want to pay their historic debt with those poor nations affected by climate change. Ambassador Salerno also said that Venezuela has always included the civil society in climate negotiations, something that has been an issue here at the COP21. Meanwhile, demonstrators continue in the corridors of the COP21 doing peaceful demonstrators, and they are also including ministers to come to these areas and participate in those demonstrations.
What are some of the main issues, Luis, that are causing disagreement there between the different parties?
Excuse me, I didn't hear you.
I said, what are some of the main issues there that are causing disagreement between the different parties there?
Okay, well, migration and women inclusion on climate talks have been left behind, according to these civil society movements. So they are struggling to put those issues on the table because the world leaders said that by Friday they will deliver this agreement. However, they say that this agreement will not be complete. And also some other diplomats are saying that probably the time will not be on Friday, so it could be extended.
And when do things wrap up there, Luis?
Probably 1 or 2 days more.
All right, Luis Arroyo there reporting from Paris. Luis, thank you.
Thanks to you, Cody.
The long-awaited decision on whether to build a third runway at London's Heathrow Airport has been delayed again. British Prime Minister David Cameron was expected to announce his decision by the end of the year. The deadline has emboldened protesters who argue that the country would not be able to stay within its carbon production targets if the airport is expanded. Alternatively, they suggest that the government subsidize the train and car industries for an environmentally friendly and practical solution. During an interview on Monday, Greece's prime minister accused the International Monetary Fund of being unconstructive.
The representatives of the fund come to Greece and demand extremely tough reforms, knowing that neither the political system nor the society can take them. And they go to the lenders demanding solutions and proposals on the debt sustainability, which they know they cannot be accepted by our peers. This is a stance that cannot be characterized as constructive in this process.
As winter sets in Europe, the number of refugees on their way to that continent has been declining. However, health concerns are still on the rise for those who have made it to Serbia. Due to poor nutrition, children are getting respiratory infections and fevers, while the adults are struggling with the cold as temperatures dip to only a few degrees above freezing there. Thousands of migrants are stranded at the border of Macedonia. The inclusion of women on the front lines of the U.S. military has opened a debate in that country. Will they have the same fate as thousands of other war veterans who came before them? Bianca Perez now reports on that story from Washington.
22 veterans commit suicide daily, and more than 49,000 are currently homeless in the United States. But many are still hopeful that they will receive the benefits promised to them for serving their country.
I've been without employment and I've been homeless for over a year. I was in a program called VASH, which is supported through the VA, which is supposed to help veterans get housing. Obama has promised that all veterans that are homeless by December would have housing. This is December. And what we have is a lot of broken promises.
U.S. Secretary of Defense Ashton Carter announced that beginning in January, women would be allowed to hold any combat position in the military.
To succeed in our mission of national defense, we cannot afford to cut ourselves off from half the country's talents and skills. We have to take full advantage of every individual who can meet our standards.
This change could allow for 220,000 women to hit the battlefield. For Operation Renewed Hope Foundation, this announcement is a victory for gender equality, but the group also condemns the large number of veterans who are homeless in the United States.
If you're qualified for a position and the only reason you can't do it is because you're a woman, that's on the face of it not right. So I think that the Army has taken a great step into showing equality across the board.
This announcement coincides with President Obama's decision to increase his fight against what he called a new phase of terrorism in the United States.
I know that after so much war, many Americans are asking whether we are confronted by a cancer that has no immediate cure. Well, here's what I want you to know. The threat from terrorism is real, but we will overcome it. We will destroy ISIL and any other organization that tries to harm us.
All branches of military service now have 30 days to provide plans to Secretary Carter on how the policy change will be implemented. By law, the military must also notify Congress and allow for a 30-day review of the decision. Bianca Perez, Telesur, Washington, D.C.
United States presidential hopeful Donald Trump, he has made some headlines again after he promised to ban Muslims from entering the country if he were elected. Several human rights organizations and Muslim groups have warned that the hatred being promoted by the Republican candidate will prompt hate crimes. In the wake of Trump's comments and the San Bernardino shootings, fear of hate crime among U.S. Muslims there is reported to be rising.
If Mr. Trump trying to save everybody's life, he shouldn't be saying that, because he's given the right to people to hurt us as a community. And I'm asking him, I'm begging him to stop all this accusation.
At least 4 people were injured in a blast from an unknown homemade explosive device at a bus stop in central Moscow on Monday evening. Now, according to police and medical sources, the 4 injured include a man and 3 women. 3 of the victims have been hospitalized. Police have launched an investigation and are treating the incident as an act of hooliganism and not a terrorist incident. Tens of thousands of Roman Catholics gathered at the Vatican earlier this Tuesday, and they were subjected to the strictest security checks in living memory there. Pope Francis began a holy year, also known as a jubilee, with a call to set aside the fear and dread of the world. The pontiff launched the religious event by pushing open the usually bricked up bronze holy door of St. Peter's Basilica and passing through it. A judge has let Oscar Pistorius remain under house arrest at his uncle's mansion, and he has set an April sentencing date. Now, this comes just 5 days after an appeals court convicted the double amputee Olympian of murdering his girlfriend Reva Steenkamp. In the meantime, Pistorius' legal team plans to appeal his murder conviction in South Africa's highest court. In honor of the Virgin of the Immaculate Conception, the people of Guatemala mark the beginning of the Christmas season with a unique tradition. On December the 7th at 6 p.m., Guatemalans across the country, they burn the devil. Families build bonfires outside their homes, and they build an effigy of Satan in the tradition held to honor the Virgin Mary. Many take part in a way to cleanse their home from devils that lurk there and to symbolically wipe the slate clean by burning rubbish of the past year along with it. And on Monday, Peruvian guitarist Manuel Prado Alarcón became the first Andean musician to be officially recognized by the Organization of American States, or OAS. Performing at a concert for human rights at the international body's headquarters in Washington, D.C., Prado was given an award for his 45-year career as an artist and his commitment to spreading Andean culture throughout the Western Hemisphere. And that's what we're covering on this Tuesday afternoon here from Caracas. Plenty more on all of those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. Also, join us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, I just said Facebook, and Twitter. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. The latest news for you in just a few hours.